It's time for TigerNet Talk with L. Swan.
You know, that's why Carolina's in Chapel Hill and USC's in California. And the university in this state always has been, always will be, Clemson. Print that, tweet that.
And I hope they come in undefeated. That's what I told you before the game. Our team believes. Our team believes. They got heart. We got greatness in us. They say we can't do it. What they say now?
Down go the champ.
Welcome back into another edition of TigerNet Talk. Clemson fans, I'm your host, Lawton Swan. Glad to be here with you. Looking forward to spending around about an hour, as always, with you here talking about your favorite team, my favorite team. That's right, the Clemson Tigers, and I hope you'll take part in the program. I see we've already got a number of people in the chat room live on Vocal. You can check out the show live on the front page of ClemsonSportsTalk.com. Click the join button, come on in. I tell you, you'll enjoy it in there. And we've also added a new little feature to ClemsonSportsTalk.com. If you go there, over on the right-hand side, you're going to see a little thing that pops out that says maybe something like leave a voicemail, whatever. That comes right to us here on the program. But if you want to take part the other way, the phone line, 803-450-0086. That's 803-450-0086. Phone lines are always open and ready to go. Every once in a while, there might be a little hitch in the system where maybe the phone lines don't work, but they are 9 times out of 10 up and away. Tweet to us, hashtag TN Talk. Had a lot of people retweeting a picture I put out the other day. I was watching some of the highlights from the Florida State-Wake Forest game, and I tell you what, if Florida State plays some of the defense that they were afforded the opportunity to play against Wake Forest, Savannah State, and Murray State, Clemson will put up some big numbers. I'm just telling you, and that's a great Florida State defense, don't get me wrong. But they can't play the same type of defense that they were playing against those teams and expect for Clemson not to put up some points. Playmakers galore on this Clemson Tiger team. Now the Atlantic Coast Conference finally has the spotlight on top of it this weekend. You don't see it that often for this league, and it's probably a little bit of a bitter pill for some of those power programs like the Clemsons, like the Florida States, like the Virginia Tech? Virginia Tech. Come on, fellas. Look, you can't go knocking the pickup of Pittsburgh and Syracuse on your message boards and then just get hammer-timed by the Panthers. That's inexcusable. Cannot happen. I hope you'll take part in the program. I know we've got Troy in here, Brandon, the Cullenberg kid. Lots of people checking us out here and looking forward to the moment that the show drops live on the front page of TigerNet. The minute that happens, this place will be packed. Standing room only here on the program, and I do appreciate you being here with us. Now, look, Sammy Watkins is the key guy for this Clemson Tiger offense. And when you look back over the first 3 games of the season, obviously you saw what Clemson could have had he played in games 1 and 2. The numbers that this kid could have put up. But give DeAndre Hopkins a lot of credit because he has been a high target. Clemson's looked at him to deliver, and he's done so. And even in the game 3 against Furman with Sammy Watkins back. Watkins caught all 4 of his passes this past Saturday for 52 yards. Not too impressive when you talk about statistics, but the way some of those plays went down, the elusive ability of Sammy Watkins that you saw has to make you feel like he's playing at game speed. And did I mention the fact that he absolutely blew through the line of scrimmage on a little sweep, picked his spot, and took off to the house for a 58-yard touchdown run. And I timed that thing 4, 5, 6 times. From the minute he turns the corner, 40 yards down the field, it's a 4.240. The kid is picking them up and putting them down. All in all, though, I think for Clemson to get him back, get him involved, that's the one thing we said after we found out this suspension would go down, was that if it went into that 3rd game, if it was the Furman game, what would Clemson do as far as preparing this team to play Florida State if Sammy hadn't gotten back in the mix? Well, we can clearly see that when Chad Morris gets things going, he's got plenty of weapons around him. Plenty of weapons on this team. And, you can pound your chest at Florida State about your big wins against the programs that you've gone up against in Clemson. Hey, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't be too excited either. It's not like Auburn looks like a world beater right now. But you've got a couple of great weapons there in DeAndre Hopkins. 7 passes in that game against Furman for 95 yards. This season, Taj Boyd is 26 of 29 when targeting DeAndre Hopkins. 319 yards, 4 touchdowns on those plays. And Hopkins had a big drop. Let's not forget, Hopkins had a big drop in that game against Auburn in week 1. But right now, you look at this Clemson offense coming into this weekend's game against the number 1, number 2 defense in the country. Statistically the number 1 team right now. Giving up 1 point per game, people. 1, uno, singular. Nope, not plural, singular. 1 point per game, average right now. 3 points in game 1 to Murray State. Sure, they've rolled up some big numbers, and we're going to tell you a lot about that Florida State team. Had a chance to sit down with Seminole Shout host John Cope earlier today. He wanted to know my thoughts on this ball game, and I tell you, I can't say that I'm going in there scared. I said from the beginning of the season, you can go back, rewind the tapes, check out the podcast editions of the show. This Clemson team has to be knocked off by Florida State. This Clemson team has to be beaten by this Florida State team. Because in recent years, Clemson has been able to punch Florida State in the mouth and really gave up an opportunity to win that game down there in 2012 by not putting the ball in the end zone. But the spread on this game, 14, 13 points, depending on where you look. Seriously? Really? I don't know about you guys. That's even more motivation for me if I'm the Clemson Tigers because I feel disrespected. 14 points? E.J. Manuel's got to show me a whole lot in this game. We'll be right back. I want to talk to you about the polls and some odd things I've seen, and then we're going to get into this big Atlantic Coast Conference matchup. But we're going to sick him on the chicken as we head to the break.
Sick him on the chicken. Sick him on the chicken. Bring out the butter and the flour, we're ready to fry.
Enjoy the Clemson football season at Seasons by the Lake Restaurant. Tiger Tailgate on the Terrace at Seasons Restaurant will be held every Clemson football game day, rain or shine, home or away, from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for those day games and noon to midnight for the evening kickoffs. Enjoy a large screen TV, a Bloody Mary and mimosa bar, specialty drinks, and a great tailgate menu, all on the Seasons Terrace. For more information, call 656-7444 or visit their Facebook page, facebook.com/seasonsbythelake. I hope to see you on the terrace.
We scoop the boot, dutycalls.com. When nobody else will do it, dutycalls.com. To make that dog poop go away, call or click for a free quote today.
When nature calls, we answer. To get a free quote for dog poop removal, go to dutycalls.com now.
DOODYCALLS. Dutycalls.com.
In the Midlands area, dial 1-800-DUTY-CALLS. They're number 1 and number 2. G-Dog General Dentistry at Oak Grove is located on Highway 1 near the Barnyard Flea Market. Modern, relaxing dentistry with TVs and headphones in every room, nitrous and even oral sedation. Digital diagnostic x-rays for better quality and 85% less radiation exposure. And check out their new Clemson Patient Special. Mention that you heard about G-Dog here on the Clemson Sports Talk programs and receive an extra 5% off all services through football season. If you don't have a regular dentist, go see my dentist, Dr. Rick Jackson at G-Dog. That's General Dentistry at Oak Grove. Are you a landowner who owns more than 10 acres that's interested in selling timber or pulpwood off your property? Cross Creek Timber is a full-service timber procurement company that buys standing saw timber and pulpwood. They're staffed with professional licensed foresters and fully insured with both workers' comp and general liability insurance. Let Cross Creek Timber develop the appropriate harvesting plan for your property and answer any questions regarding forest management. Call today, 864-517-3620. That's 864-517-3620 for your free woodland evaluation, or visit www.crosscreektimber.com.
Clemson Tigers, we coming for you.
Yeah. That's how we do it, baby. It's a tailgate party. Y'all better come on. It's going down.
We
in the parking lot, got the beer on night.
Well, it's going to be game day in Tallahassee, Clemson Tiger fans. If you like exposure, you're going to get it. Now, the question becomes, if you look at, and maybe not even the question, but the thought, I think if you're a Clemson fan, you look at the history, whenever Clemson gets a little bit of exposure, whenever the people and the pundits start coming out of the woodworks and saying, this Clemson team's got a special season ahead of them. I wish I had the sound queued up from The Price is Right. That's the way it goes, right? I mean, it always seems to fall apart. But this year, all you hear, everywhere you turn, Florida State this, they're the best defense since LSU and Alabama and sliced bread. Nobody can penetrate their complete wall of a defense. I just have a different feeling about this Clemson Tiger offense. And the nightmare scenario, and the only nightmare scenario that I would say that exists in my mind going into this game is the opening 3 and out. Because I'm almost guaranteeing you, if they win the toss, they're kicking. And if we win the toss, we're taking it. Because if you can put them behind the 8 ball, down 7, maybe get them down 10 or 14 points, you talk about the pressure building, and it might not be from the defensive front. It might be in the brains, or at least the brain of E.J. Manuel. Because Manuel is a proven commodity in some big games. But he's also proven throughout his career that when he's under pressure, he chokes it down. And I think that there's a real opportunity here in this game if Clemson can get a lead, get after Manuel to pressure him, and all of a sudden the defense at Clemson that hadn't looked great might look a whole lot better. Talking about things, though, that don't look great, I don't examine the polls all that often. But as your team starts to climb the charts and you start to get into the mix a little bit, you start to say, well, who's voting us how? And I want to tell you about pollspeak.com. That's POLLSPEAK.com, because it will lay it out for you and tell you how the AP ballots went down. Now, Steve Sipple right now has Clemson ranked 5th in the country. Thank you, Steve. We'll take it. Steve works for the Lincoln World Herald out of Omaha, Nebraska. Has a lot of respect for Clemson, apparently. You've got a number of guys with Clemson at 7, then 8 and 9 mostly, right in the range where they end up. That's kind of how this poll system works. But you scroll it on down just a little bit, and a couple of things jumped off the page to me. Seth Emerson, who now works, I believe, covering the Georgia Bulldogs, but once covered the South Carolina Gamecocks. He works in Macon, Georgia now. He has Clemson rated at number 16 in his poll. 16. Now, if Clemson is the 16th best team in the country, I honestly don't believe that at this point. I don't care what happened last season in the Orange Bowl. You can't harp on that. Everybody wants to. You can't. That's in the past. Things, maybe the defense doesn't look as good as you hope, but you look at Clemson's schedule right now. Look ahead. I mean, look, you're never going to hear me on this program ever again talk about, well, if a couple of bounces go our way, we're going to play for the national title. I'm out of that mentality. This is not going to be the Sunshine Pumpkin Cafe. If you came here for that, you're at the wrong place. But I'll tell you this. When you look down the road at Clemson's schedule, you've got to believe that no matter how it plays out outside of some kind of unforeseen injuries, that this is going to be a team that finishes, I would think, well within the top 15. I cannot see the wheels falling off to the point this year that Clemson finishes outside of 15. And if Clemson right now at 3-0 is your 16th ranked team, I just got a feeling. I mean, look, if I was in the polls and I was voting, I'm going to go ahead and tell you I'd be honest about it. And I don't want to question his integrity at this point, Seth Emerson. But it almost reminds me of like Coach Steve Spurrier putting Duke in his first poll every year on the coaches poll because he coached there. I mean, and polls really don't count for anything, and I probably shouldn't get on this soapbox and stand here and tell you what I think about it. But I do have an issue when I see people who covered our rival voting us as one of the lowest voters in the poll. That bugs me a little bit. It honestly bugs me a little bit. And finally, John Wilner out of San Jose, California. Turn your TV on, please. Just check out what Clemson's doing. I know that you're probably busy at midday, or I guess there it's 9 a.m. when we're kicking off most of the time. You're probably still sleeping in. But for crying out loud, do us a favor and check out Clemson. He has Clemson number 21 in his poll right now. And if I read to you some of the ridiculous teams that he has ahead of Clemson in the poll, you would probably drive to San Jose or fly and want to punch this guy square in the face. I mean, that's how ugly it is. I mean, he's got West Virginia at number 15 in his poll. He has Florida at number 5. He has Michigan State at number 11. I don't know. Southern Cal with a loss at number 9. These things, look, you can go through here and pick people apart. The good news is you can rate him as a good or bad voter. I'm going to rate John as a bad voter. And 144 other people agree. It's not a lot. We need a consensus. We got 175 people. Go vote. Let's run this guy out of a job. I don't know if that's how it works, but at least it would be worth it. I mean, that just drove me crazy when I saw that. I don't know about you, but it just bugs me a little bit. Now, all in all, like I said, rankings and all that doesn't mean anything. And I've said here before this season, 9 wins this year, if you go back and look at the schedule, that's probably a letdown for me at this point. I mean, that's 6 more wins in this schedule. 10 to 11, I've said before it's a great year if you get 10 to 11 wins. 12 to 13 would be unbelievable, and 14 is the national title. So you're right there. You're a fourth of the way through the season, a third of the way through it after this weekend. If you could come out of this one 4-0, man, the sky is the limit all of a sudden. You're the darling once again of college football. You jump up a couple of spots probably in the polls, and people begin to believe, especially if you have a good defensive performance in Tallahassee, that this Clemson Tiger team can be a contender if the chips fall their way. That's the facts. I told you I'm not going to tell you that. That's what they're going to tell you. And I can't disagree with that if we get through this one, that we could beat everybody remaining. But for right now, the focus has to be on Florida State. You know all the facts. You know all the stats about this game. We're going to give you a lot more of them, a lot of juice to carry to the water cooler tomorrow at work when we get back from this break, because I guarantee you this, there are some fun facts that you may not know. And this is a scary, scary Florida State defense right now, if you account for the fact that Murray State and Savannah State don't exactly play big boy football. And Wake Forest seems to have reverted to their good old-fashioned Wake Forest selves. We'll be right back after this message.
I wanted to be just like Jeff Davis when I grew up, tackling Seminoles and Bulldogs, playing football in the mud. Say everybody sing Tiger Rag at the top of your lungs, and we'll party like it's 1981.
Blake Austin of South Carolina Farm Bureau is an insurance agent you can count on to meet all your needs. Home, auto, health, life, you name it, Blake's got you covered, and he can save you on your yearly rates. Call him now for a free quote, 803-259-5008. That's 803-259-5008. Or just go to ClemsonSportsTalk.com and click on the Farm Bureau logo to be connected to Blake. Do like I do and work with the best agent around, and you can tweet that. Take your business to the next level with innovative website design from Foodog Media. Foodog can handle all your web, graphic, and social media needs. Call them today, 843-864-9268. That's 843-864-9268. Mention this ad and receive 10% off of your website. Foodog is a Clemson-owned business. See their portfolio at www.foodogmedia.net. May the food be with you.
Hate the thought of shopping? All that hassle and can't find what you're looking for anyway? We understand. Retail stores make it difficult. Instead, try www.edistooutdoors.com. Edisto Outdoors features performance apparel and gear engineered for performance, comfort, and style. EdistoOutdoors.com. You'll enjoy the shopping and you'll enjoy the products. Great products from people who care.
G-Dog General Dentistry at Oak Grove is located on Highway 1 near the Barnyard Flea Market. Modern, relaxing dentistry with TVs and headphones in every room, nitrous and even oral sedation. Digital diagnostic x-rays for better quality and 85% less radiation exposure. And check out their new Clemson Patient Special. Mention that you heard about G-Dog here on the Clemson Sports Talk programs and receive an extra 5% off all services through football season. If you don't have a regular dentist, go see my dentist, Dr. Rick Jackson at G-Dog. That's Gentle Dentistry at Oak Grove.
I'd grow up and I'd settle down. There was 10,000 girls up in Tiger Town, and it was heaven to me.
Rolling along, got Tommy in the chat room saying the trends line up in our favor, but I'm not sure the trends can overcome their D and our lack of D. But he'll be in Doak Campbell, hoping to witness a big-time victory. You know, it kind of has the feeling to me of what we felt like going into Virginia Tech last season. Yeah, you're never going to win their night game. Are you kidding me? Inner Sandman rocking it. You're not going to beat that. What? Oh, shocker. I mean, that's the way I feel right now. And I hope you do too. I mean, I told you guys, I said, look, in the preseason predictions, as I went through it, I had Clemson winning this game against Florida State. And I said, even though things have been ugly, if the Tigers can play some good defense against Furman, you got to like our chances. And it wasn't a beautiful performance. I mean, Furman did a fantastic job, one, of juicing the clock and really taking the air out of the football for Clemson, forcing Clemson to press maybe a little bit more than they wanted to. And I'm not saying that Clemson was frustrated or anything, but Clemson knew when they had the ball, they had to capitalize, because if Furman got it, they were going to run 6 minutes off the clock if they could, 8 minutes if they could, going to shorten the length of the game. And I don't know that Florida State's going to have that same strategy. So you start getting this tempo going, you start getting Clemson's tempo and pace going. Tell you what, it'll be something to see if Florida State can withstand it, even with that great defense. Now, I want to thank everybody who's retweeted us on Twitter. Clemson Fan 1981, JB Tiger, 1984. Clemson Fan 1984, JB Tiger 1980, and the Cullenberg Kid all checking in on Twitter. Appreciate them. People in the chat room blowing it up. Thank you all for coming in. Let me tell you, go to ClemsonSportsTalk.com if you want to watch the show there. Over to the right-hand side, a little thing's going to pop out. It's a way to leave us a voicemail or call us, 803-450-0086. The good news is the voicemail and the phone lines are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Email us, Clemson81@gmail.com. But it does have that eerie feeling of Clemson heading down into enemy territory in a game that we probably shouldn't win. But at this point, I would never sell this offense short, and I would never sell Coach Dabo Swinney's ability to motivate these players. Now, Clemson has won 6 out of the last 9 in the series, including the last 5 played in Clemson. Hard to believe, but 2001 was the last time Florida State won in Death Valley. There are 10-year-old Florida State fans who have never witnessed a Florida State win on the road in Clemson. Now, if you think about that for a minute in your lifetime, if you're anything like me, about 10 years old was about the time when I really started to get into following the numbers games and the realization of what my team was. Now, this would have been 1987 for you Clemson fans. You can imagine, as I started looking back from 87 on through my early years, I realized we were a part of a powerhouse program. There was nobody on our schedule at that time who you feared at all, who you thought we can't beat them on the road at their place. Georgia might be the closest thing, and that was such a great battle. If you're a 10-year-old Florida State fan, you're thinking every time you roll up to Pickens County, you're going to get your rear end kicked. That's a good thing for Clemson on the recruiting trail. It's a good thing for the future of Clemson football, and the more that stat's spoken about, the better off it is. You are. But this is the first true road test of the season. You can count Auburn having a little bit of a numbers advantage in the fan base there at the game in Atlanta, but this is really the road test for Dabo Swinney and this ball club. And while Clemson has an opportunity coming up against Georgia Tech to move the home winning streak to 10 games, which is a big thumbs up because the death is finally back in Death Valley, on the road, Dabo Swinney 7-11 as the head coach at Clemson and 2-2 overall versus Florida State. That's probably one of the more intriguing things. 7-11, and it just hasn't gone well all the time for Clemson on the road. But you would have expected, I feel like, more road games in his career, but only 18. Clemson, however, has only won once in Tallahassee since back in the since Tallahassee came in the ACC in 1992, and that was in 2006. You'll remember that was the quick snap to James Davis that got the ball down about the 2-yard line. Mike Patrick with a beautiful call on that one. Clemson is 9-1 though in Tallahassee. Excuse me, only one win in Tallahassee with 9 losses since the Florida State Seminoles had joined the league. So it hasn't been pretty in Tallahassee. You remember Clemson rolling down there, a top 10 ranked team in the country, facing one of the top Florida State team. I think they were number 4 at the time in that game. And Florida State beat Clemson 54-7, if my memory serves me correct. That was the Snoop Menace, Chris Winkie putting it on his hip ball game. And that was a painful, painful one to watch. There have been others that were disappointing. But that one was pretty painful, getting smacked around when you felt like for the first time in a long time you had a chance to maybe show Florida State's fans in their home turf that Clemson football was back to playing big boy ball. Now, after that Punt-Ruski game back in 1987-88 in Clemson, Clemson went down there the next year to Florida State and handled some serious business down there. I believe that was the 1989 season. Off the top of my head, you had Wayne Simmons with a 72-yard interception return. You had Terry Allen with a little nice toss sweep for a touchdown run there. I believe that dropped Florida State to 0-2 as I recall. I'm pretty sure Florida State had opened the season with a loss against Miami that year as well. And that was when you thought, well, hey, maybe this Florida State thing, you maybe saw the writing on the wall that they were coming into the league a few years later. You had the night game in 92 where Charlie Ward would lead a late comeback by Florida State. You had the Pete Warwick game versus Tony Horn, the back-and-forth battle. You had Bowden Bowl 1. All these things that have built this rivalry into, I think you could argue, outside of the Clemson-South Carolina game, the number one rivalry on Clemson's schedule year in and year out, and the game that you and I most look forward to. I know there's a lot of you out there that really like to get your hands on Georgia Tech every while. You like to wring their necks a little bit while they're wearing their little pocket protectors and they have their protractors out. I understand that. You guys like beating up on the geeks from Atlanta. I get that. Okay, everybody likes to mess around and, rough up a nerdy little pencil-necked engineer every once in a while. You know what I'm talking about. But Florida State, Clemson, high-level football right now in this conference. And it's not to knock the other teams, but Virginia Tech's let you down. Georgia Tech, they've got that old-school flavor. They're a scary team. Brent Venables has got his hands full when that one comes up, too. Now, you talk about this Florida State defense, first in the nation in 5 defensive categories. Rushing defense, giving up only 33 yards a game, playing no one. Total defense, 103 yards per game, playing no one. Pass efficiency defense, number 1 in the country. Pass defense overall with only 70 yards per game. And scoring defense, we mentioned that earlier, the 1 point per game average. And they have really played less than Clemson. If you think Clemson's schedule has been abysmal, take a look at Florida State's. Don't even say Wake. If anybody in the chat room says, have you looked at Wake Forest? I'm going to be pretty disappointed. Just reading here, Tommy in the chat room says it's 88 2 days before I shipped off to boot camp. Oh, yeah, back in 88. Good stuff there, Tommy, and thank you for your service as well, sir. We really do appreciate that. Gives us the right to do this show, Thank you, Clemson Tom, for checking in with us. You guys know Clemson Tom. He's pawsome. I think I can say that without being sued by him. I think I can. I'm not sure. I believe it has something to do with the jurisdiction I'm in. I'm currently recording this program from an undisclosed location, Tom. Great guy. Tommy Chastain says he'll be at the Palace Saloon Friday night if anyone wants to come out and hang out with him. The Palace Saloon. Bjorn Warner leads the nation in sacks, 6.5 per game, and thank goodness that Brandon Jenkins isn't playing. Not to mention Greg Reed, who was kicked off of this team, who would have been a significant member of this Florida State return team. However, they've already returned 2 punts for touchdowns and returned 12 punts on the season for 220 yards, while your Tigers have only returned 1 punt for 13 yards. The Seminoles offense, because of some of the competition they played, in fact, playing a game against Savannah State that ended early, are still the number 2 ranked scoring team in the country. But you know what? Not scared. Last season, coming in to Clemson, Florida State was ranked 2nd in rushing defense, 4th in total defense, 4th in scoring defense, 8th in tackles for a loss. What happened in that game? Well, you all remember it. 443 total yards for your Tigers. A 35-30 victory. A game where, without a little fluke play with Taj Boyd, I don't know what Taj was doing. A little, kind of you just have those moments. Taj had one and single-handedly let Florida State get back in that game. That game would have been a lot worse. The Tigers threw for 344 yards, 5 touchdowns, picked up 26 first downs, and called 85 total plays against that vaunted Florida State defense, who is still loaded. Look, and if we get beat down, you guys will be here saying, well, you said this, you said that. But I'm just telling you, if you fear that team walking in there, you've got the wrong mentality. If all week long you've sat in your little cubicle at work and thought, well, I don't want to say anything, you've got the wrong mentality about this game. I'm not fearful of that defense against our offense. If there's one thing that worries me just a tad, is that Florida State offense versus the Clemson defense. Because we've seen teams like Furman, like Ball State, gash us with the run. And that's a fair statement to make. That's exactly what it's been. Now, Brent Venables, fortunately, has seen Florida State the past 2 seasons, as well as the Clemson coaching staff, who has also seen them. Plus, he has a close relationship with the Stoops family, and Mark Stoops is the defensive coordinator there at Florida State. But this Tiger defense is clearly got its issues. We've seen coverages blown, guys looking lost, no pressure. And I rarely call out a player, but if there's a guy right now, if there's a guy on that team that needs to step up, it's Malachi Goodman. It's Handzilla, guys. And no disrespect to the kid, but this was his time to take the limelight. And this is a program in Clemson that has really begun to pride itself on the defensive ends that they are putting out. And Malachi Goodman has all the potential in the world, and maybe his motor's not running as high as it needs to be. Look, Malachi Goodman is a much more skilled player than Andre Branch. What is Malachi Goodman doing that Andre Branch didn't do? I'm not sure. But it sure seems like Andre's motor ran a lot harder. And if Malachi's watching, listening, catching the podcast, whatever, step it up this weekend. This is your chance to solidify yourself. Because if you go in there and blow up a young Florida State offensive line, a young but seasoned, they started 5 sophomores in that bowl game last year against Notre Dame. A young but seasoned offensive line. If Clemson can get after them, if Malachi Goodman can show out a little bit, big fella, you will begin to cement yourself amongst some of the late, great players we've had. Troy says Tiger Nation feels disrespected. And you're right, Troy. And you should feel disrespected. A 14-point spread is a slap in the face. It is a slap in the face to what we've done in the past. Everybody wants to harp on what happened down in Miami, and that's not fair. You never want to think your team quit. I think that's a hard and bitter pill to swallow. But looking back at that game, I can't see any way, shape, or form to say that we did not quit that game. And if we ever have a chance, West Virginia was continually coming after us late in the game, putting up points. If we ever have the chance to get our hands around the Mountaineers again, I just hope that we flat out run through them. Tommy says that Tommy Chastain on Twitter, follow him, says that the Miami game in the Orange Bowl, we were 17-point underdogs. I don't ever remember feeling like a 17-point underdog in the game. The Tiger defense is allowing 367 yards per game, total offense, and almost 180 yards of rushing. The defense of old at Clemson prided itself on shutting down great players. Herschel Walker, George Rogers. Those were the guys who were Heisman Trophy winners that never put the ball in the end zone against your Clemson Tigers. And the thing about it is, many of the fans and a lot of the people who give a lot of the money right now to this university, that's what they expect from the defensive side of the ball. Fair or unfair, game changed or not, that is what they expect. Maybe we've been a little bit vanilla. Maybe we haven't, really run with all the full throttle packages that we've got. Or maybe we don't have the horses on defense. We're young, but there's opportunity there. And I think the linebacking core, there were some bright things you saw. Tony Stewart. In the second half, Clemson did pull out Travis Blanks, but I expect him in a return home to Tallahassee to be an impactful player in this game because Florida State's going to be willing to throw the ball around a lot more than Furman was. We got to disrupt them with our schemes and our packages. Quarterback E.J. Manuel of Florida State said this about Clemson. They are the same team to me. They look great. They have athletic guys just like our defense. They have a good front four, strong linebackers, and strong defensive backs. It's definitely going to be a task for us to go out and handle things and to do things like we know how. The good news for Clemson, they have forced a number of turnovers in their ball games. Big plays, 14 of over 20 yards. How many turnovers are those? 6. You continue to force turnovers, you'll have a real chance in this ball game. I guarantee you that. It's never going to be easy going down to Florida State, but if you can get them a little bit rattled, the chance is there. When we come back, we're going to give you a little bit of the history of where we sit right now and also a look at Florida State and then the predictions and what the PS3 thought. We'll be right back after this message. Stay with us.
Nothing she ever thought about. Didn't know it was gone the day she moved out. In my head, if I pointed it just
Do you need land management, habitat improvements with an emphasis on hardwoods? Contact Thomas Forestry. They're conveniently located at 576 Riverland Drive, Suite A in Charleston, South Carolina. Joseph W. Thomas and Thomas Forestry have been maintaining renewable resources since 1977. Call now to discuss your options with Joe. 843-735-3993. That's 843-735-3993. Enjoy the Clemson football season at Seasons by the Lake Restaurant. Tiger Tailgate on the Terrace at Seasons Restaurant will be held every Clemson football game day, rain or shine, home or away, from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for those day games and noon to midnight for the evening kickoffs. Enjoy a large screen TV, a Bloody Mary and mimosa bar, specialty drinks, and a great tailgate menu, all on the Seasons Terrace. For more information, call 656-7444 or visit their Facebook page, facebook.com/seasonsbythelake. I hope to see you on the terrace. Take your business to the next level with innovative website design from Foodog Media. Foodog can handle all your web, graphic, and social media needs. Call them today, 843-864-9268. That's 843-864-9268. Mention this ad and receive 10% off of your website. Foodog is a Clemson-owned business. See their portfolio at www.foodogmedia.net. May the food be with you. Blake Austin of South Carolina Farm Bureau is an insurance agent you can count on to meet all your needs. Home, auto, health, life, you name it, Blake's got you covered, and he can save you on your yearly rates. Call him now for a free quote, 803-259-5008. That's 803-259-5008. Or just go to ClemsonSportsTalk.com and click on the Farm Bureau logo to be connected to Blake. Do like I do and work with the best agent around, and you can tweet that. Hey there, Clemson Tiger fans. If you're interested in advertising with Clemson Podcasts, go to ClemsonPodcasts.com and click on the advertising link. And as always, go Tigers!
This is Clemson Tom, and you're listening to Clemson Sports Talk. So sit down and have you a cold one and listen to a true American.
I like driving down Clemson Boulevard.
I have got to get in there and record that promo again because, we've rebranded ClemsonSportsTalk.com. We are the artist formerly known as ClemsonPodcast.com because we're more than just a podcast show. Clemson Hotline is a radio show played around the state of South Carolina. Check out your local markets for it. And I'll tell you this, if you like Bomani Jones from ESPN's Around the Horn, he was on this week's show talking about Clemson and Florida State. So that's good stuff. Just go to ClemsonSportsTalk.com to check that out. And we do have our first question of the day here. We'll take it on the air. And I believe it is from Drumit. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I probably am not. But he says, about the media, why does the media always overlook Clemson? I'll tell you a couple of reasons why it happens. One, because Clemson, to be fair, when we've had that moment, that spotlight, that chance for the light to shine on us, we've fallen flat on our face in recent years. And it's a pretty frustrating thing, I think, for Clemson Tiger fans when you look at it, down the road and you say, or in the past, you kind of look in the rear view and you say, man, we've kind of let it slip between our grasp. The other thing is, when you're not a state-name school, unfortunately, some people don't know if we're in Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina. They don't really know where we are. Maybe we're in North Carolina. I think that has something to do with it, too. Now, the media obviously should know, but how many times have you picked something up and read it from a national guy, somebody out in Oregon, and it said Clemson, North Carolina, some kind of bizarre scenario like that? I don't know if that has anything to do with why we get overlooked, but I can tell you this, it does make you feel a good bit disrespected to see that. JB Tiger 1980 says, who's going to be the defensive standout Saturday night? You can follow him on Twitter. For me, the defensive standout I'm really hoping is somebody like Travis Blanks. I hope that kid has a coming out party for a couple of reasons. And this may be a little bit selfish on my part, but the recruiting battles that have gone down between Clemson and Florida State in recent years are huge. And when you look back to what Clemson has done in the state of Florida, being able to get guys like Sammy Watkins out of there, guys like Travis Blanks, C.J. Spiller, the list goes on and on. The hotbed of talent that's in Florida. If you can go down there with a freshman who played high school football right there in that town and have him be the guy who's the headline player who makes a big interception return to ice the game, something special like that, maybe forces a big fumble late, whatever it is that happens. I like thinking about that, man. That felt good to kind of say that. If that happens, JB, I'll tell you this. That would be as big for recruiting as almost anything Clemson would do this year in that state. Because all of a sudden guys would say, hold up now. They got the number one player in the country and a guy like Robert Kimdichie coming in, on and on and on, the future looking bright, and then they're bringing in kids from Florida playing as a freshman and blowing people up. That's the guy I'm hoping. I'll take anybody. I'll take the interception return, by Latique Townsend. I don't care who it is. You give the guy the ball, let him run to the end zone, DJ Reader, whatever. We'll take it. But if I had to have a guy that I think it would be more than just that moment, something that could really carry some weight for us, that might be the one to do it. He's a special ball player. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. There are very few guys out there who, when you see them on the field, they look the part of a football player. Brian Dawkins always looked the part. Okay? That's just one prime example. You could probably go through the list of Clemson Tiger greats who you just saw that something special. Antoine Edwards always looked the part. We'll take this next question. This is the fun part about it. You dictate the show. Do you think Venables has been holding back? This comes from CU Tailgater on Twitter. I think we had to have been a little bit in these games against Furman and Ball State. You had to kind of show your cards a little bit against Auburn. And like I said on Clemson Hotline this week, our call-in show that occurs on Sundays at 9 p.m. on the front page of TigerNet as well and on ClemsonSportsTalk.com. As I said there, right after the game, my initial gut reaction is that I feel pretty good about containing E.J. Manuel right now because he's a threat with his legs just like Kyle Frazier was. We did pretty good him up in that game against Auburn. I think we'll have a shot in this game against Florida State, and the questions continue to come in. We'll drop that one. We'll take the next one. Clemson Tom, do you think our DBs can cover their wide receivers? Well, the good news is Willie Holstead, who was one of their main receivers a couple of years ago, was out last year with concussions. He hasn't been a factor this year at all. Kenny Shaw's their leading receiver right now. He's got 10 catches, 144 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The biggest threat for me, though, is the redshirt freshman, Kevin Benjamin. This kid is 6'6", 242 pounds, a monster wide receiver. I don't know if we'll see a wide receiver his size again this season. He's a downfield threat this year already. 10 catches, 140 yards, 2 touchdowns. That'll be a big problem for Clemson. Rashard Green, another true freshman. He's got 500 as a true freshman. He had 596 yards and 7 touchdowns last year. And let's not forget Nick O'Leary, who I believe you golf guys will recognize as the Golden Bears' grandson. Is that right? Can somebody fact check me on that? Is that Jack Nicklaus's grandson? Not Jack Nicholson. My wife would say Jack Nicholson, but I have to tell her that's the guy from the movies. But Jack Nicklaus's grandson, Nick O'Leary, is probably the best tight end Florida State's had in a while. He's already got his hands on a couple of balls this year, and you can expect them to use him. Now, looking back, though, at E.J. Manuel this season, he's 42 of 59 for 525 yards and 6 touchdowns. Coming into this season, he had thrown 121 consecutive passes without an interception. That's very accurate for him. He has not been that accurate throughout his career. Again, I mentioned the legs. That's a scary part of his game. If we can keep him contained, we might be good to go. He's a little bit injury prone. Went down with a shoulder injury last year. Clint Trickett, of course, came in, played serviceably well. I think many of you might be a little bit more scared of a Clint Trickett because you know you're going to get a very accurate passer, a much smaller, less athletic guy. The thing that E.J. Manuel doesn't do good, his internal clock is awful. Clemson Tom says E.J.'s a little erratic. He is very erratic. I'll agree. He has a chance to be one of the better quarterbacks, more athletic quarterbacks that we've seen in college football in a while. Could be electric, dynamic. Could remind you more of a guy like Cam Newton than anything you're ever going to see coming out of Blacksburg and Logan Thomas. Said that all season, 2 years now. But Manuel clearly has his moments where he just makes unbelievable mistakes. Now, Chris Thompson's back. Of course, last year he had the broken back against Wake and was out the remainder of the year. He's got huge playability. Huge playability. I believe he had runs as a sophomore of 90, 83, and 70 yards. He had runs of 74 and 80 versus Wake last week. 18 carries on the season, 254 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Lighting it up. One of the top recruits in the country a couple years ago, James Wilder Jr., also getting a ton of carries. And Florida State's doing an unbelievable job moving the ball down the field, on the ground, and in the air. Lots of chatter going on in the chat room. JB Tiger again says that Trickett is a much better quarterback, a much better passer than E.J. Manuel, and I tend to agree. We mentioned their offensive line earlier, so we'll fast forward just a little bit. Defense is just beast mode. That's the best way I can explain it to you. These guys are unbelievable. Brandon Jenkins is out. That's a plus for Clemson. You feel bad for the kid. Anytime a young man like that goes down with all that talent. Bjorn Warner, fantastic. Defensive tackles, Jernigan and Ant McLeod, they're great. And then the top high school talent. I mentioned a guy like Kim Dichie coming in. Imagine Kim Dichie and Montravius Adams landing at Clemson. That's what happened. Mario Edwards at defensive end and Eddie Goldman, defensive tackle. Probably the best combination in the country. Went into Florida State. Those guys will be playing. That's exactly what that feels like. You want to know what it feels like? Let us get Big Monty alongside of Kim Dichie. That feeling you'll have on National Signing Day is the feeling Florida State has, a belief that those two guys, Goldman and Edwards, can be impactful players. Now, they lose Nigel Branham, who was their number one tackler for the past 3 seasons, but they got 4 of their top 5 guys back, and they moved Nick Moody, who was a safety, up. So they've got a lot more speed and coverage ability than they did last year. Xavier Rhodes, one of the top defensive backs on the team. LaMarcus Joyner is a hard-hitting safety, and Terrence Brooks. Those two guys are probably their best safeties they've had in 10 years. I mean, those guys are great. This is a legitimate team in Florida State that if they beat Clemson, can run the table. The possibility really exists. One thing that's funny, there's only been one team in the Atlantic Coast Conference since 2001 to lose only one game. So even if you are the team that drops this one, it doesn't mean you're out of it. Maryland. That's right. Check it. If you don't believe me, Google it. Bing it if you're a Bing fan. Or Yahoo it. Whatever. However you search. Maryland was the last Atlantic Coast Conference team to lose only one game in their entire season. Now, for the history. Let's talk about it because it's out there. This game has become monumental in my mind. This is the chance because this is a conference and a division foe. Clemson, you could argue, this year has the number one quarterback in the Atlantic Coast Conference, maybe in the country. I know there's the Matt Barkley people out there. He didn't look sharp. Boyd has to look sharp. Andre Ellington, Chris Thompson and Ellington, they're right there, two of the top backs in the conference. Andre, the runs he had against Auburn, those are a thing of gold. You don't see that type of running every day. Wide receivers, Watkins and Hopkins. And the four behind them are probably the top wide receiving core in the country. So you can pound your chest, Florida State, and you can tell us how great your defense is, this, that, and the other. But I can tell you this. There's not many teams out there, Oregon, Southern Cal, West Virginia, maybe in Ohio State with Urban Meyer there, who can come in and have the weapons around on an offense that can put up the type points Clemson can put up. I just don't believe it. There aren't that many out there. And Urban Meyer's probably lucky that I'm throwing his name in the mix right now. They got a fantastic quarterback, though. Fantastic quarterback. Troy is ready to head to Tallahassee tonight to tackle somebody in the chat room. And if you listen to the podcast, you missed the live show because it is off the chain in here. Let's see. We've got another question here from can't really pick out how to say that right now. Last year versus FSU, we averaged 2 yards per catch. Do you think we'll have a better 2 yards per carry? Do you think we'll have a better ground game this time? Yeah, absolutely. I think you already see it. I think when you look at the pistol formation, the way we get up the field, the fact that, some of those little passes, we had one that was ruled incomplete, that like a fumble, that gets the wide receivers into what I consider the rushing game, even though Taj gets to pick up those passing yardage. I mean, this offense is scary good, and we haven't seen anything yet. I'm telling you, we haven't seen anything. Really looking forward to it. Let's see here. We'll take another question. This comes to us from Sean Smith. He says, I really think we lack talent at cornerback right now. I feel like moving Adam Humphries to cornerback. I can't figure out. The other thing is, and not maybe even a lack of, it may not even be a lack of talent right now as much as it seems like it's a lack of technique and a lack of ball awareness in the air. I mean, I think there is put Sammy Watkins there. You want some good hands back there playing defense? Can Sammy play both ways? Can we get Sammy Watkins playing both ways, please? That's the ticket. Put Sammy back there, the gloves of doom. Of course, this game generally dictates who wins the Atlantic Coast Conference Championship. In 2010, Clemson couldn't punch the ball in the end zone, piled up tons of yardage at Florida State. Final score, 16-13 Florida State with a 55-yard field goal by Dustin Hopkins, who is still the kicker for the Seminoles. Won that game. Florida State, what did they do? Played for the Atlantic Division in the Atlantic Coast Conference Championship. 2011, we already talked about it. You know how it went down. Taj Boyd, Sammy Watkins coming out party, this, that, and the other. Andre Ellington had 23 carries for 71 yards. Clemson wins it. Big drives in that one, too. And Clemson played for the Atlantic Coast Conference Championship against Virginia Tech. 7 plays, 80 yards for a touchdown in that game against Florida State in 2 minutes and 36 seconds. 8 plays, 77 yards, and 3:35 for a touchdown. 9 plays, 79 yards, 3:37 for a touchdown. 11 plays, 70 yards, 5 minutes for a touchdown. 6 plays, 80 yards, A minute 49 for a touchdown. Boom, 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 boom. Moving the ball up the field. Moving the ball up the field. This year, expect it. Faster tempo from Clemson to attack Florida State. Sammy getting more touches. 15, 20 touches by Sammy Watkins. Shots taken down the field. And this is where the offensive line for Clemson really becomes a key. Because we haven't seen a vertical passing game. Most of the stuff we've seen is dumped out to the flats. Very simple, easy passes. That's why some of Taj Boyd's numbers are through the roof dynamic. They're very simple throws to make. If Florida State stays in that press coverage, we put the picture out on Twitter. You look at it. You tell me, if they stay in that coverage against Clemson, if Sammy Watkins, if our offensive line can give us 4 seconds, it's going to be toaster pastries all about the field. They will be forced to get out of it. Forced. Double moves galore. And you just can't guard Sammy Watkins and DeAndre Hopkins with that style defense. It's not going to happen, people. We can really take advantage there if the offensive line can give us a little time. Give Morris credit, though. Chad Morris does a lot to protect them by getting that ball out quick. That kind of negates some of that pass rush. So for me, I mean, that's going to be key. You can expect this thing to fly. It's going to be quick, fast-paced. And finally, Florida State cornerback Nick Wasom said when speaking on Sammy Watkins, I want to go there and have him have 0 receptions. I would just like to wish Nick good luck on that challenge. I'll be looking for Sammy to end that game with a goose egg in the receiving column. Not going to happen, partner. The PS3 prediction sent to us by our main man, Sammy, not Watkins, but O'Neal, has Clemson traveling down to Tallahassee for this big matchup. Taj Boyd goes 14 of 31, 141 yards, a touchdown, a pick, and took 1 sack. Andre Ellington carries the ball 12 times for 90 yards. DJ Howard 4 times for 76 yards and a touchdown. Nuke Hopkins had 6 catches for 76 yards and a score. Watkins 4 catches, 34 yards. And no other receiver had more than 1 catch in this game. E.J. Manuel was 17 of 24 for 256 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had 11 rushes for 33 yards and 3 touchdowns. So it was a 5-touchdown day for E.J. Manuel. Chris Thompson carried the ball 16 times for 93 yards and a score. Now, let me tell you, if you are not going to the game this Saturday, Seasons by the Lake Restaurant has the Tiger Tailgate on the terrace, home or away, rain or shine. This is an evening game. It is away. They'll be there. Make sure you show up at noon. You can stay there till midnight. Tailgate with all your Clemson Tiger friends there, right there in Clemson. For more information, 656-7444. Go to their Facebook page, facebook.com/seasons by the lake. Well, we've broken it down. The wait is over. iPhone iOS 6 came out today. But more importantly, Clemson, Florida State, Atlantic Coast Conference, and the Atlantic Division could be on the line in this one. For me, I've said it all along. If Clemson's defense can play up to a level of expectation that I think we all have for them, we have plenty enough offense to outscore anybody in the country. And that includes a team like Florida State with a SEC defense. So you got it right here. I'm taking your Clemson Tigers to get the win. I said if Clemson didn't allow Furman to score 21, we'd win it. I've said it all season. We will win it. It's ours to take. Clemson travels into Doak Campbell Stadium and rips the hearts out of Noel Nation. Clemson wins it. Final score, your Tigers 31, Florida State 27. We'll see you guys next week. Y'all take care now, and go Tigers!